Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Chad Amond, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce, Chad Amond. I am delighted to have on the show today Mike Pochan and Ed Sam. Mike and Ed are key leaders with the Irwin Business and Professional Association that is helping to revitalize and make vibrant the city of Irwin in Westmoreland County. Mike and Ed, I want to first get your background and why you are engaged with the Irwin Business and Professional Association. Mike, we'll start off with you and give us a little bit of your background and why you are adamant about making Irwin a better place.
Well, I did not grow up in Irwin, so as we say, I'm not a homie, but when I moved to North Huntingdon, one of the reasons that we moved there was because of downtown Irwin, that classic Main Street, which was something that I grew up with, part of my life in New Kensington, part of my life, or my relatives in Ford City and Katanning. And so I remembered what it was like to have that downtown, the sidewalks and all the businesses that were there. And so when I moved there, we always went down and visited, and so I have just that passion for that, what I call it, the classic Main Street.
Ed, what's your background and what's your professional background, and why are you thinking of making Irwin a better place?
Well, because it's in my heart, because I was born and raised in Irwin. I've lived there all my life up until about 10 years ago, and I downsized my house, and my kids moved to college, and I said, okay, I don't need this big house, so we're now in Greensburg, but Irwin is always in me. It's always in my heart, and Irwin's a great town. So I just got involved with it and tried to make things better, even though they're good to start with. They're even better now, and from everything that's going on and everything, Irwin's a great town, so I'm excited about it, and I want to hope to keep it that way and make it even better and better.
Mike, what is the focus and the mission of the Irwin Business and Professional Association?
Okay, well, we do have a stated mission, and it's an all-volunteer group that promotes the business, health, and vitality of Main Street, Irwin, for the benefit of the surrounding communities in Westmoreland, Allegheny, and Fayette counties. And I want to point out that that's something where we've taken what we think is a different approach to some people. What we do is not just for Irwin. It's not just for North Huntingdon and Irwin and North Irwin, which would be called Norwin. We know that as a small community, to stay vibrant, we need to invite everybody within we usually say within a 30-mile radius to come to these events. Why? Because if they come, then they shop, they eat, they come back. And so that's the approach that we've taken. Now, the history of it goes back 30 years when Irwin was, I'm not say at its low point, but certainly it had a lot of vacancies and such in town. Things were looking a little bit worn around the edges. And the council asked a small group of the business people, could they help with certain things? And so they formed the Irwin Business and Professional Association at that time.
Well, Ed, one of the things that I say is that, Westmoreland County is about 80 square miles shy of the same size as the state of Rhode Island. So if you're living in, Seward, or you're living in Monessen or New Kensington, sometimes people think they need their passport just to go to Greensburg or Irwin. So describe Irwin and give the listeners an understanding of what the downtown is like.
Well, first of all, let me just say that when I talk to people wherever they're from, they always say, "Oh yeah, Irwin. Oh yeah." If I mention the word Irwin, they say, "Oh my gosh, that's a great town." So the impression is out there, and when you want to come to Irwin, it's there's a reason for it, and the reason is that so many good things happen in Irwin, and the businesses are good. That's the other side of it. And plus, if you're just going from, let's say, Monroeville, and you want to get to Latrobe, sometimes you're going to come down Route 993, and you're going to go through Irwin. You got to go to Main Street to get to Route 30. So those things happen, and so that's why people can come through there, and they don't think it's like forever to get there. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would take us to Newcastle, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to take so long.
Right.
But now, it's not that big a deal.
Well, one of the things that Mike, you and I had a meeting a week or two ago, and we were talking, and you mentioned the vibrancy of the commercial real estate over maybe the decade or two. Talk about that for the listeners.
Okay, well, when I started with the group 15 years ago, the occupancy rate, or let's say the empty rate, was 20% of the storefronts were empty. And the group was 4 people struggling to do 4 events. Although they were doing a great job, it was a small group of dedicated people. And we talked about the future and the fact that we needed to grow and get bigger and attract more people in. And so we set the course to keep adding events. 15 years later, although in between there, we had a Main Street program funded by the state, and a rising up of the community to support that, as well as the renovation, reconstruction of the Lamp Theater. We've managed to reach a point where we now have a group that meets weekly, typically has 12 to 15 people at the meetings. But here's the key thing to your question. We've managed to get the vacancy rate to go from 20% to 2%. And
Wow.
So there's 100 small businesses in downtown Irwin, and 2 storefronts are all that are available. And our problem is there are businesses that come to seek a place, and there's not enough space. Like the 2 empty spaces are small. And
Well, that's a good problem to have, right?
It's a great problem.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is, now that we run 16 events, we added an event this year, a holiday open house. We estimate that we draw almost 40,000 people per year into a town that there's only 4,000 residents.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned before is that the Irwin Business and Professional Association is run by volunteers, but who are some of those volunteers, and is it a committee? Is it assigned by the council, or how does one become involved in the IBPA?
You walk into the door, and you're a member.
Okay.
That's the most important thing in making this successful, And who's in charge? We have a queen, and that's Lois Wolfslegel. She runs our meetings. She's our president, And we have other people as well that have the right philosophy about what is going on in Irwin and trying to make it better so that they can do better in their businesses. People like Carl Stilitano, who's CPS Photography, Amanda Medeiros, who is Amanda's Curvy Boutique. There's so many different ones that are there, and they're all involved, and they're very much, and they do it all the same. And my philosophy is, you have to be the 3 Musketeers. And you might say, well, what do you mean the 3 Musketeers? All for one and one for all. It's simple as that, and that's the way it makes it work.
The thing I'd like to add is that we do have bylaws. The organization has had bylaws for 30 years, so it has been well organized. Bylaws, officers, budgets. And we have our officers. And another thing that we do is it's really important. Two things that we try to share with other communities. One is, notice that the name is not the Irwin Business Association. They knew that there weren't enough businesses that would be involved because store owners have to be in their stores.
Right.
So they consciously included the professionals, the lawyers, the accountants, myself as a consultant. I don't have a storefront. And so that was something that I always thought was a smart move. It's organized as a 501c4. So it's a nonprofit, but we don't seek charitable donations. The group raises the money through sponsorships, selling placemat ads, and other types of fees and such at an event or things that are sold. And we're proud of the fact that we stand alone. We're fiscally responsible to ourselves, and we run a tight ship, but we also we then probably the biggest expense we have on a percentage is marketing, and that gets back to we want to reach the 3-county area. I mean, Chad,
right.
The chambers that we've joined because we want to reach all those people and say, hey, we invite you to come to Irwin. Please come to Irwin and share in the fun with us.
Right. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Mike Pochan and Ed Sam. Mike and Ed are key leaders with the Irwin Business and Professional Association. Fellas, we're going to get into some of the events that you do. Well, I don't want to say some of the events. You do a ton of events. What was it, 12 or 15 events?
I think we're up to 14 now, right?
You're up to
16.
16 events. But I, before we go to the break and we get into the events things, why do you want to promote the businesses in Main Street of Irwin?
Well, again, like Mike said, it's to bring those people from outside. We'll get those people from Irwin. They'll come into town and so on and so forth. But now we want to reach out to the people in Greensburg and Latrobe and Jeanette, Penn Trafford, Monroeville, and all that stuff. And we do that with these activities, with these events. And the key to bringing them in is to make the events successful. And if you've ever been to one of the events that we have, they are extremely successful.
So it's sort of a collaboration thing. So making connections to the people in downtown Latrobe or the people in North Huntington or the people in Greensburg. You're trying to make sure that that the community is collaborating.
Correct. That's exactly right.
And one of the things that you have printed and make sure that the listeners understand that you can go on to www.downtownirwin.com and understand a little bit more about the Irwin Business and Professional Association. How would they contact you if a listener wanted to make sure that they were getting more involved?
The best method is Facebook, Downtown Irwin on Facebook, because that's active all the time, and we get those messages and we reply to people.
Okay.
Right. Problem is we don't have an office, therefore we don't have a street address, and we don't have a telephone, and so we rely on Facebook, email.
Well, that's today's world, right? that's the way you make the connections.
That's correct. And to tell you how much Facebook does work for us, 7,983 likes right now.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. You're listening to Westmoreland County Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Welcome back. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. I'm your host, Chad Amond, president of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce. Our guests today are Mike Pochan and Ed Sam from the Irwin Business and Professional Association. Before we went to the break, we were talking about promoting the Irwin downtown area and the mission and who runs the IBPA. We're going to talk about the fun stuff now. The events. I mean, you guys and the crew of the IBPA and the downtown area. I'm sure there's probably a zillion volunteers, but there are 14 major events: car cruise, ethic food festival, music on streets, gig on Main, sidewalk. All of these things are bringing, what did you say, 40,000?
If you add it all up all year, 40,000. 40,000
people into downtown Irwin, and that is a huge number, because Irwin has about 4,000 residents, correct?
4,000, yes.
4,000 residents. Well, let's talk about some of the major events, and we'll talk about all of the events that occur over the course of the year. But let's first talk about the Ghost Walk, right? Right, the Ghost Walk. It's because Halloween is coming up, right?
Really?
The Ghost Walk started, we always like to give proper credit to where we got the ideas. So the Ghost Walk was born out of the Ghost Walk at Seton Hill University, conducted by Bill Black.
Okay.
And I went on that Ghost Walk and was very entertained. There was another fellow who was, at the time, the chef at the Cafe Supreme in Irwin. He also had been on the Ghost Walk. And he came to our group and said, "What would you guys think about doing a Ghost Walk?" I said, "Heck yeah, I was there. It's creepy."
Yeah.
And that's how it began. And I wanted to make that point. How is it that we have so many events with a small core group of people? One of our rules is that if you want to have an event, you have to chair it. So we don't get real excited about people that come to us and say, "Hey, I have this great idea for an event, and you ought to do this, and you ought to do that." No, we have enough to do. Why don't you do that event? And it's worked out really well. So Ghost Walk started there. The paranormal group came in and investigated, and some of the stories. Here's the strange part. What happened was one spot was investigated by two paranormal groups.
Okay.
Bill Black's group, and there's another one that's more, like, says they're more scientific. Well, they don't collaborate, so they both came out with roughly the same story. And then when I heard the story about fire and white dust and pain, I went and talked to one of the old timers in town and said, "Do you have any idea what happened down there?" And he told me, and it fit both of their sets of research. Now, nobody died, but somebody was injured. It was a bakery, and the oven exploded. And so it was the darndest thing, and that sold me on the fact that I don't just discount paranormal research.
Yeah.
When I heard these stories. Same thing happened in a building that used to be a funeral home. Nobody knew that. And I didn't tell them because I knew it was, and they did their research, and it came back a little creepy. So at the Ghost Walk, groups of people will go around to different sites in town that have been researched, and they'll hear the stories of what was found.
So how do you? I'm stuttering here. Right? That is creepy. How do you participate in the Ghost Walk?
Well, it's something that people actually buy tickets to come and see. That's how big of a deal it is for people. They buy their tickets, they come, and we actually have herders. So we have groups of people, and we have like a golf shotgun start, and then we move them all around, and they go to these buildings, and because we research them through the proper channels, we find out where the ghosts really are. In fact, we just found out, one said, yeah, you keep hearing this voice in the back of this building, so when you come to these things, it's not just you look at this building and it looks a little creepy and stuff like that. There's great stories behind these buildings, and for a legitimate reason.
Well, Ed, I want to get the goosebumps down. Okay, so this is like the scary part, but this. You also host Trick or Treat, but that's with the businesses on Main Street, Light Up Night, the Christmas Cookie Tour. Talk about some of those events, and also you have a ladies' night on November 1st, correct?
See, I'll take Light Up Night. Light Up Night, it was one of the first events the group started 30 years ago, and the idea was, so many people didn't want to go to Pittsburgh for all, it gets crowded and all that.
Right.
Typical Westmoreland County people don't want to go, it'd be nice if we could stay home and do it. So they did. They put the Light Up Night Parade together, and, it's just been going great all these years. It's also, they happen to pick the day before Pittsburgh has its parade. So it's the first Light Up Night Parade of the season.
Right.
The cookie tour, I wanted to mention, the Christmas Cookie Tour, that was borrowed or influenced by Lawrenceville. Lawrenceville had a cookie tour where you go around all the stores, everybody has cookies. And so one of our members said, hey, why can't we do that here? That person was more than happy to run the event. And so that got started. I wanted to point out that in 2016, we made it on a list of 10 Pennsylvania main streets where you should go to celebrate Christmas.
Oh, no kidding.
And we made that list of 10 statewide.
Yeah.
And the picture they used was of the cookie tour, which has a horse-drawn carriage and such.
Well, the Main Street is vibrant. I was just at, well, I'm a big Neil Young fan. So, and there was a cover band called Broken Arrow, and they were at the Lamp Theater, and I went with a couple of buddies. We went to the Colonial Grill, and we went over to the concert. The Lamp Theater seems like it is thriving. I get the email that they have probably 15, 20 concerts over the course of a month. Talk about that.
Well, the Lamp Theater is thriving, and I've got a lot of history, too, because my uncle used to own it when it was a movie theater.
Oh, really?
Okay, but now it's more of a tribute band theater or a live act theater, and whether it's the kids or whether it's these bands, there's always that entertainment happening in Irwin 7 days a week, so that part of what we're trying to do to bring people in, the Lamp Theater's doing well. And you know what? It's not the Lamp Theater as anybody might remember it. The only thing left of the Lamp Theater from what it was is the shell of the building. It's a completely brand new building. It's got stadium seating, a fantastic sound system, and what's coming is the outdoor courtyard with a diner. And Mike, I'll let Mike talk about the diner.
Yeah, I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, the diner, again, it's something that we saw that we could save from the scrap heap, and it's a classic item in many people's childhoods. It's not going to be a food diner. It's simply there to be the concession stand area, because the concession stand in the Lamp was found to be too small. When 350 people were there, things jammed up. Another important thing is, the C. Harper Courtyard is just, if you haven't seen it, it's coming to shape. It's awesome. We hope that there'll perhaps be next year a Westmoreland Chamber Bash there. But across the street, Chad, you and I are involved in the economic development on a couple committees, and the economic development is happening. Across the street, a 100-year-old hotel, older than 100, 130-year-old hotel, is being renovated, and there'll be a restaurant in the bottom of that. A few stores up, there's a microbrewery going in, literally across the street from the Lamp. So that economic development that you hope for is happening.
You guys are focusing on what we are saying is a critical component to making Westmoreland County a better place to live, work, and play. Is making sure that our walkable downtown areas are thriving. But I always say no margin, no mission. So how are you guys funded? How do you make this work?
Well, you have to, I hope this comes out right, you have to have a good controller or treasurer that keeps track of budgets and holds people to them. We do not let people spend more than what's been raised. And so if they're running an event, they have to raise the money, and we hold them to the budget. So we're very careful about that. Why? Because 20 years ago, the group was bankrupt. I forget what they did. I wasn't there. And they had to get a loan to survive. So we manage it tightly, but we raise the money. Sponsors, placemat ads are our two biggest things. Placemat ads are placemats that are taken to restaurants, given to them, but we sell the ads on them, and so we get the exposure for those businesses.
Well, obviously, I'm biased, but why are you guys members of the Chamber of Commerce? I mean, you're a member of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce. I know you are members of the other chambers. What is the benefit for you?
Well, exposure. That's the key benefit, and marketing. We get to talk to people, we get to network with people, and plus we just believe that we're a part of southwestern Pennsylvania. We're not just Irwin.
Right.
We're a part of Westmoreland County, and that includes all of those chambers.
And Ed, I've worked with you for a number of years. You're sharing this concept for other communities, right?
Exactly, I am. Yes, we are. We've gone to Greensburg, we've gone to Jeanette, we've gone to different places like that, and we'll go anywhere. And it's the concept, okay? And it's the bar. Irwin sets the bar, and that's where you got to reach to.
Well, Mike, we're getting close to the rounding up. But how is the reaction in the retailers? What is the reaction for the businesses in Irwin?
Well, if you take a measure of one of our meetings, which is every Thursday, and you see those retailers, they're very much involved in what we want to do here and what we're trying to do. But the key to anything, when you do these events, it makes you feel good. They're great events. It brings people in the door. But the most important thing is you got to put more money in the cash register.
Right.
And that's what it is for the businesses. And it doesn't always happen on that night, but it happens a week later or a month later, whenever it might be. It's like when a supermarket puts up Halloween candy in July. That's because I know where I'm going to buy my Halloween candy because I saw it there. So that's the same thing we have here.
Right. Well, we're gonna round it out and finalize the interview with what is the secret sauce. Mike, I'll lead it off with you.
Yep. The ingredients in this secret sauce, the very, very first one is, what do the people want? I mean, the people that will attend the events, what do they want? And what will bring them to town? That's number one. Number two is, what do the storefront owners want and need? And we feel that that's why we get people to come, because we've hit on what they would like to come to town for. The second thing is, we meet weekly. We insist on that. We preach that to the other communities. They have trouble with that. But by meeting weekly, we're in constant communication, and we have to be with 15 events. Otherwise, too many things would fall through the crack. And the third item is one that I don't know how to say other than we all make sure we get along. We try not to let the group fall apart, have any divisions in it. We're not perfect by any means, but we fight really hard to keep everybody together.
Ed, any final comments?
Well, we have all these events, and I got to give a shout out to the Gig on Main, which started out with Dancing Queen, and it was so successful. And the last 3 years, it's been so successful. It starts at 4, usually ends around 11 o'clock. Well, we're all there, helping to make it work and everything. And at 11 o'clock, we're like, go home. It's over. We're done. They don't want to go home. They like to be there. That's how much they really enjoy that. And to tell you how important Irwin is, guess who was just there not too long ago? Maybe about a month ago.
Oh, the Miss America.
Miss America, Kara
Miss
Munn.
America. Yeah,
she came to Irwin.
No
Thankful
kidding.
to one of our retailers.
Wow. Ed Sam, Mike Pochan from the Irwin Business and Professional Association. If you want to connect with them, you can jump on their website. It's downtownirwin.com, or you can find them on Facebook in Downtown Irwin. Just search it on Facebook. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Chad, very much.
You've been listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Join us next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Westmoreland Community Connections. Thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.